Breaking news coming out of the NBA when it pertains to the king himself, LeBron James. Expected, of course, was to miss a little time with that high ankle sprain. Now expected to miss several weeks. We're talking about the Lakers, the defending champs, now losing their leader for quite some time. We saw what happened last night with LeBron not in the lineup. The Lakers losing that game to the Phoenix Suns. When you talk about it, today we're exactly a month away from the start of playoffs. LeBron, of course, leading when we're talking about MVP race and others and the defending champs beyond that. All right, let's bring in our Bill Reiter to break this down. And Bill, your reaction now, we kind of have a timeline compared to the one we had over the weekend when the injury happened in Atlanta. Your reaction to this?
My reaction is this is obviously, if not dire news, it's pretty close to it for the Los Angeles Lakers. Talking to a source for the Lakers yesterday, they expressed, Brandon, the obvious, that they are worried, that they are concerned, and they understand that losing LeBron for the near term, for the midterm, is really problematic in a very crowded Western Conference standings picture that's far from determined, even with a month to go in the regular season.
So we've seen what this team looks like without LeBron, and then you add AD to the picture. When you think about it, they have a slight cushion there, still in the top 5 when we're talking the Western Conference. But what type of team will this Lakers unit look like without the King in the lineup now?
Many of the beat writers, Brandon, covering the Lakers have looked for different ways to describe this team the way that my Lakers source did, and that is, quote, a hot mess, end quote. I think one of the local beat writers described all the pieces around LeBron and AD as spokes on a wheel that have no hub without one of those stars. That's another fancy way of saying a broken basketball team. With all respect to Frank Vogel and Dennis Schroeder, who talked about having to do things in a different way, they're simply not a very good team, and it's highly unlikely. They could surprise, but certainly the expectation is they won't be very competitive over the next 3 or 4 weeks. And they've got teams on the schedule like the Bucks, like the Clippers, like the Sixers. I think Pelicans next up, the Nets down the line, even teams like the Heat and the Raptors. It is not going to be an easy road for the LeBron-less Los Angeles Lakers over the next month.
And you mentioned there, of course, the Pelicans up later tonight. To be interesting to see how that looks once again after what we saw against the Phoenix Suns, what of course was a loss in that bracket. But when you look at it now, we're getting close to the end of possible trade deadline. If you're now losing LeBron James, no Anthony Davis for quite some time as well, do you start to maybe bring some pieces in just to make sure that they don't fall off too far in the Western Conference?
That will absolutely be front and center of Rob Pelinka, the general manager's mind. The trick is going to be what it always is with teams like the Lakers, who have already sent away a lot of assets, in this case, to get Anthony Davis. The reality is, and I checked in with sources yesterday, nothing's changed in the fact that Kyle Kuzma is not exactly a coveted piece from other teams. It's not like the Lakers have a ton of draft picks, at least near-term draft picks, to trade away. So certainly Pelinka is going to be keeping an eye out. Maybe the buyout market is a place where the Lakers can try to make some moves. They need to be creative. They need to add some help and some depth. But it's going to be a very difficult task for a Lakers organization that had really constructed the team the way that they could, and that was around LeBron and Anthony Davis.
All right, you see the Clippers, the guys share the same building right behind them at 27-16. Has a chance to catch the Lakers. But when we're looking at LeBron James here, Bill, and you're talking about the MVP run, Joel Embiid, of course, was running away with it at the beginning of the season. Then you had him getting injured. LeBron now injured now. When he comes back, will he still have a chance to compete for the MVP at the end of the year?
It's going to be close. I mean, the only thing more chaotic in sports right now than the NBA MVP race is March Madness in my bracket and everyone else's bracket. It certainly felt like, in Vegas reflected this with the odds, that it was LeBron James' MVP to lose, and he was going to win it before the injury. And then if it wasn't him, it was Joel Embiid. So now you started to look at guys like Luka Doncic. Can Damian Lillard make a push? And this is a big if. But you see the Lakers are only 6 games ahead of the 9th-seeded Golden State Warriors. If the Warriors go on a run and the Lakers fade, does Steph Curry get into the mix? I think it's very, very likely that you're going to have an MVP race for the first time, Brandon, in a long time, that comes down to the absolute wire, maybe the last few games in the NBA this regular season.
Yeah, the door is definitely open for that MVP trophy, as we mentioned there. All right, of course, Bill Reiter following the breaking news here of LeBron James missing several weeks now away from his team as we get closer to the playoffs here. Appreciate your time as always.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.